It was just another Saturday night, until the atmosphere in the room suddenly changed. On the iconic stage of Saturday Night Live, Colin Jost looked directly into the camera and delivered a line that didn't merely land, it detonated. He joked about a trade deal in which the United States would keep Meghan Markle. And for the first time in years, the audience's laughter wasn't nervous or restrained. It was loud, immediate, and collective. For many observers, it felt like a cultural turning point. For years, there had been an unwritten rule across much of mainstream media. Meghan Markle was to be treated either as a tragic figure or as a symbol of empowerment, someone protected from criticism at nearly all costs. But that night, the shield didn't just crack. It shattered. The audience reaction revealed something deeper than a simple late-night joke. It suggested that public perception had shifted dramatically. Meghan Markle was no longer viewed solely as a royal in exile. Increasingly, she had become a cultural punchline, one that audiences instantly understood. And while viewers were still reacting to the moment, a much darker storm was already beginning online. Because jokes like that don't emerge in a vacuum. They happen when public opinion has already started to turn, and when the Montecito mystique has begun to fade. Within hours of the broadcast, the internet did what it always does. It started digging. And what resurfaced, or what critics claimed had been dragged back into public view, was enough to make even some longtime supporters uncomfortable. Commentators began revisiting old rumors, resurfacing photographs, and discussing connections tied to some of the most controversial figures and social circles in recent celebrity history. The fairy tale narrative was suddenly being rewritten in real time, and this time, critics argued, Meghan Markle was no longer controlling the story. To understand why this moment felt so significant, many analysts pointed to what they called the permission to laugh effect. For years, criticism of the Duchess of Sussex was often met with fierce backlash and accusations of misinformation or bias. But once a mainstream institution like Saturday Night Live openly mocked the situation, many believed the era of media protection had officially ended. Even controversial remarks previously made by Donald Trump about the Sussex saga no longer seemed isolated or extreme to some audiences. Instead, they were beginning to sound increasingly mainstream within certain corners of public discourse. According to reports from celebrity insiders, the reaction inside Montecito was immediate and tense. PR advisors allegedly realized that the long-running victim narrative surrounding the Sussexes was no longer resonating the way it once had. The public, critics argued, was no longer sympathizing with an underdog story. Instead, they were laughing at what they perceived as a carefully managed celebrity brand. But the backlash didn't stop with late-night comedy. Just days after the SNL segment aired, social media exploded with resurfaced yacht photographs that internet investigators claimed resembled Meghan Markle during her pre-royal years. The images were grainy, candid, and oddly cinematic, showing a woman who looked strikingly similar to Meghan Markle aboard luxury yachts surrounded by wealthy businessmen, champagne, and lavish Mediterranean settings. For amateur detectives across Reddit and TikTok, these weren't merely old celebrity photos. They became what many described as a forensic goldmine. Online users analyzed everything from wrist tattoos and designer swimwear to timestamps and travel locations that allegedly conflicted with her publicly known timeline. The long-running yacht girl rumors, once dismissed by many as fringe conspiracy theories, suddenly returned to the center of online conversation. And the timing could not have been worse. Just as Meghan Markle was attempting to reposition herself as a lifestyle entrepreneur, promoting her American Riviera Orchard brand, teasing rose launches, and filming a cooking show, the resurfacing yacht allegations threatened to transform her carefully crafted rebrand into a liability. Critics argued that the problem wasn't merely the existence of the photos themselves. It was what they allegedly represented. For years, Meghan Markle had cultivated the image of a self-made humanitarian, a woman who rose from struggling actress to global icon through ambition, talent, and perseverance. But the yacht narrative painted an entirely different picture in the minds of critics, one involving strategic networking, elite social circles, and a glamorous world of billionaire connections that allegedly predated her royal life. That contrast became deeply damaging to her image online. Critics argued that it was difficult to reconcile a carefully marketed brand of authenticity, empowerment, and organic living with rumors of exclusive yacht invitations and elite social climbing circles. As internet sleuths dissected every pixel of the resurfaced images, the polished image of the Duchess of Sussex increasingly appeared, to critics, less like a natural public persona and more like a carefully engineered brand. Commentators pointed to the luxury settings, the circles of wealthy men in designer sunglasses, and the private staff who appeared unusually familiar with the environment. According to critics, this did not resemble a casual vacation or youthful adventure. It looked like a woman already deeply connected to worlds of extraordinary wealth and influence long before meeting Prince Harry. And that led to even more uncomfortable questions online. How did she gain access to these circles? Who paid for these trips? And what, exactly, was expected in return? But according to conspiracy-driven commentators, the story became even darker when discussions turned toward Prince Andrew. For years, rumors had circulated online about alleged connections between Meghan Markle and social circles linked to Prince Andrew. Critics claimed those circles overlapped with the same elite networks that became globally infamous through the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. The allegations centered around private islands, billionaire gatherings, and the world of elite social networking that surrounded figures connected to Epstein and Prince Andrew. When renewed scrutiny over Prince Andrew's past associations resurfaced in the media, some online commentators began quietly mentioning Meghan Markle's name in discussions about who may have encountered those social environments firsthand. According to rumors, some legal observers allegedly viewed her as someone who may have possessed insider knowledge about how those elite circles operated behind closed doors. At that point, the controversy was no longer being framed merely as celebrity gossip. To critics and conspiracy theorists online, it had evolved into something far more explosive and politically dangerous. What mattered, according to critics, wasn't just what Meghan Markle may have known, but what she may have seen. The late Virginia Giuffre, formerly known publicly as Virginia Roberts, a central figure in the legal controversies surrounding Prince Andrew, was reportedly said to have considered calling Meghan Markle as a potential witness. The reasoning, according to online speculation, was simple. Meghan Markle was an American outsider who had not been raised within the palace culture of silence and discretion. Critics also claimed she had allegedly moved within some of the same elite social circles connected to Prince Andrew and his controversial associates. Mainstream media outlets, for the most part, avoided the subject entirely. But the online world operates by different rules. Across Reddit, TikTok, and gossip forums, users repeatedly asked why this particular nuclear button had never been pushed publicly. Some speculated that the palace avoided scrutiny because exposing one figure could potentially expose others. Critics framed the issue as part of a much larger web of royal scandals, elite networking, and carefully protected reputations. One name that repeatedly surfaced in online investigative discussions was Marcus Anderson, often referred to by tabloids as the King of Soho House. Anderson has long been known as a close associate of Meghan Markle, dating back to years before she became globally famous. According to critics and conspiracy theorists, Soho House was more than simply an upscale social club. They portrayed it as the social staging ground where ambitious actresses, celebrities, billionaires, and aristocrats crossed paths. Online rumors even suggested that Meghan Markle's long-term ambition had always involved marrying into royalty, with some commentators speculating that Prince Andrew may once have been considered a possible target before Prince Harry emerged as the more appealing option. As internet investigators revisited Meghan Markle's former lifestyle blog, The Tig, critics pointed to posts celebrating luxury travel, exclusive invitations, and elite social experiences. To supporters, these posts reflected aspirational lifestyle branding. To critics, they appeared, in hindsight, like clues documenting her rise through influential social circles. The online obsession didn't stop there. Critics also began revisiting Meghan Markle's years on Deal or No Deal. To casual audiences, she had simply been another aspiring actress and briefcase model trying to build a Hollywood career. But internet sleuths interpreted those appearances differently. They argued it represented the beginning of a carefully managed public image built around networking, visibility, and proximity to power. Clips resurfaced showing Meghan Markle working celebrity golf events, posing alongside wealthy figures, and frequently placing herself near the center of media attention. The critics claimed these appearances reflected someone highly aware of how influence and image functioned within elite celebrity culture. Meanwhile, the silence coming from Montecito only intensified speculation. Normally, when controversies involving the Sussexes erupted online, critics expected an immediate PR response. Carefully timed leaks, paparazzi appearances, emotional statements, or media narratives focused on charity work and family life. But this time, observers noticed something unusual: silence. No public rebuttals. No Instagram messaging. No coordinated interviews. Just a near-total communications blackout. And in the world of celebrity image management, critics argued that silence does not always mean innocence. To many online observers, it looked like a calculated retreat, a decision to avoid fueling a controversy that could not easily be disproven or redirected. But the internet rarely lets go of a story once it gains momentum. Instead, it digs deeper. Behind the scenes, reports described rising panic inside Montecito. Sources claimed Meghan Markle was scrambling to contain the damage while trying to launch a global lifestyle empire at the same moment her name was trending alongside phrases like yacht girl and exposed. Critics argued the rebrand was collapsing because the public no longer believed the carefully curated narrative surrounding her past. According to rumors, Meghan Markle was allegedly contacting media allies in an effort to redirect attention back toward her humanitarian work. But critics claimed the internet had already transformed the controversy into a cultural meme. And then there was Prince Harry, the prince who had walked away from royal life, surrendering military honors, royal duties, and much of his relationship with the monarchy, had done so believing he was protecting the woman he loved from what he described as a hostile and predatory press. But critics began asking a devastating question: what happens if the man who believed he was rescuing someone eventually realizes he may have been manipulated himself? Royal watchers increasingly claimed Prince Harry appeared withdrawn, quieter, and emotionally distant during recent appearances. Some tabloids even suggested he looked blindsided by the resurfacing controversies. According to online speculation, the romantic fairy tale he believed in may not have included stories about Mediterranean yacht parties, elite billionaire circles, or alleged ties to people connected to his uncle, Prince Andrew. Critics started referring to him online as the Duke of Regret, a man allegedly realizing that the glossy narrative surrounding his marriage might have hidden uncomfortable truths beneath the surface. Observers also noted growing tension within the Sussex public image. While Meghan Markle was reportedly fighting aggressively to regain control of the narrative, Prince Harry appeared increasingly withdrawn, skipping appearances, avoiding interviews, and remaining unusually silent during what many expected to be a united public relations response. Commentators argued that defending the media becomes much harder when doubts begin to emerge about the very story you once trusted completely. Some reports even suggested Prince Harry had started privately questioning parts of Meghan Markle's original story, including the famous claim that she didn't know much about him or the royal family before their relationship began. Critics pointed to claims from former acquaintances alleging that Meghan Markle had long been fascinated by royal culture and celebrity status. Online users mocked the idea that she had never researched Prince Harry, especially as old interviews, social media posts, and stories from former friends resurfaced online. When your wife says she never Googled you, critics joked online, but old friends claim she had a vision board with your face on it. Trust starts disappearing fast. For many royal commentators, the emotional consequences for Prince Harry could be devastating. After sacrificing so much of his former life, the idea that his marriage and public identity might have been built upon illusion or manipulation would represent an almost unbearable realization. One anonymous palace source allegedly described him as a man realizing the fairy tale came with an enormous hidden price. Online commentary toward Prince Harry has also become increasingly ruthless. Critics now openly question his judgment, emotional stability, and ability to recognize manipulation. Many mockingly ask how he could ever have believed the famous "I knew nothing about the royals" narrative in the first place. Even the Sussex's planned 2026 tour of Australia, once expected to be a major public relations triumph, has reportedly become overshadowed by these controversies. Instead of discussing humanitarian work or global influence, critics claim the public conversation has become dominated by memes, yacht rumors, and resurfaced photographs. And the damage, according to entertainment insiders, is no longer just personal. It's professional. Hollywood executives reportedly took notice of the Saturday Night Live jokes, the viral memes, and the increasingly toxic online discourse surrounding Meghan Markle. Rumors soon began spreading through industry circles that her brand might no longer be commercially marketable in the way it once was. Because, according to industry insiders, she has become too unpredictable and too risky. Some studios are reportedly reconsidering potential offers, while several brands have allegedly paused planned campaigns, not because Meghan Markle lacks fame, but because executives increasingly view her as a liability. In an industry where image is currency, critics argue that her public value is falling rapidly. Empowerment quotes that once inspired supporters are now being repurposed into satire, while motivational speeches are being edited alongside alleged yacht footage across TikTok and YouTube. Even some of her loudest online supporters, including lifestyle influencers and feminist bloggers, have reportedly grown noticeably quieter. Critics claim few people want to be the last public defender of a celebrity brand that appears to be unraveling in real time. According to commentators, this controversy was never truly just about yachts or a Saturday Night Live joke. At its core, they argue, it exposed the fragility of a persona built more on aesthetics and branding than on authenticity. Critics claim Meghan Markle didn't simply marry into the royal family. She executed one of the most ambitious public rebrands in modern celebrity culture. Piece by piece, her image was polished, packaged, and presented as a flawless transformation. The briefcase girl from Deal or No Deal disappeared. The lifestyle blogger behind the TIG disappeared. In their place emerged a carefully crafted global icon. But the internet, critics argue, has a long memory and very little patience for feeling manipulated. Once the polished image began to crack, online audiences no longer saw merely a woman with a complicated past. According to critics, they saw a strategist willing to discard anything or anyone that no longer fit the evolving narrative. Commentators pointed toward the strained relationships surrounding Meghan Markle, her father, former friends, former co-stars from Suits, and eventually much of the British royal family itself. Critics described it as a recurring pattern, one where relationships allegedly became disposable once they no longer served a purpose. Some online voices even labeled the behavior narcissistic, arguing that she built her world entirely through strategic connections while simultaneously burning bridges behind her. And now, with the yacht rumors resurfacing, critics claim those damaged relationships are beginning to look less like coincidence and more like a trail of unresolved history. Online investigators have increasingly connected her former friendships, social climbing allegations, and current isolation in Montecito into a broader narrative. To critics, the story forming is not one of reinvention, but one of erasure. And that, many argue, is the true scandal. Not yachts, not champagne, not old photographs, but control. Control over a carefully rewritten backstory designed to support a glamorous empowerment narrative while burying anything that might contradict it. Yet as the internet continues resurfacing old receipts, critics argue that the brand itself is losing its shine. The woman once marketed as inspirational and aspirational is now increasingly becoming the subject of TikTok memes, reaction videos, and YouTube roast compilations. Her polished social media posts and motivational buzzwords are being dismantled by audiences who feel they've now seen behind the curtain. And once that curtain falls, critics say, it can never fully be pulled closed again. The irony, according to commentators, is that Meghan Markle's influence was always built on the appearance of transparency. She presented herself as an open book, a woman escaping a supposedly racist institution while courageously speaking her truth. But as contradictions and old statements continue resurfacing, critics claim that truth increasingly resembles a carefully scripted performance. The blind date story. The famous "I never Googled him" claim. The revelation that she and Prince Harry were married 3 days earlier. All of it is now being re-examined through a far more skeptical lens. And when a public image depends heavily on perfection, critics argue, unresolved contradictions eventually begin closing in from every direction. No royal title, celebrity podcast, or expensive PR campaign can completely stop the momentum once the internet transforms someone into a meme. Because once you become a meme, the internet effectively owns the narrative. You can hire elite lawyers. You can replace publicists. You can spend millions on damage control. But you cannot erase laughter. It lives forever in comment sections, Reddit threads, reaction videos, and viral edits that continue resurfacing year after year. Critics claim that every future project tied to Meghan Markle, whether a cooking show, charity initiative, documentary, or business launch, will now inevitably face the same flood of comments about yachts, memes, and Duke of Regret jokes involving Prince Harry. Increasingly, critics no longer frame her as a rebel challenging royal traditions. Instead, they portray her as a master brand strategist whose greatest product may always have been herself. And according to commentators, by the time Meghan Markle began scrambling behind the scenes to contain the backlash, it was already too late. The damage, they argue, became permanent the moment the audience on Saturday Night Live laughed without hesitation. Because that laughter did something powerful. It gave everyone else permission to laugh too. And in the ruthless worlds of Hollywood and royalty, critics argue there is one thing worse than hatred or controversy: becoming a joke. A controversial figure can still command power. A villain can still inspire fear. But once a public figure becomes a punchline, critics claim they stop being powerful and instead become entertainment, a distraction consumed for amusement rather than admiration. And for a woman who fought so relentlessly for influence, luxury, and global status, that transformation may be the most devastating blow of all. Being seen as a distraction, critics argue, is the ultimate failure for someone whose entire public identity was built on influence, prestige, and cultural relevance.
So, what happened next?
According to online rumors, some of the wealthy and influential men allegedly connected to those old yacht gatherings are now becoming increasingly nervous themselves. Critics speculate that if Meghan Markle's carefully crafted image is beginning to unravel, others connected to those elite social circles could potentially face renewed scrutiny as well. The alleged connections to Prince Andrew and the wider Jeffrey Epstein scandal remain what many online commentators describe as the nuclear buttons the palace fears most. Some rumors even suggest that Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, are increasingly frustrated with the Sussexes and may eventually choose to reveal damaging information of their own. According to speculation, both figures allegedly feel discarded and sidelined after losing much of their royal influence and status. Critics pushing the so-called narcissist theory claim that Meghan Markle has a pattern of distancing herself from people once they are no longer useful to her public image. If that perception is true, commentators argue, she may have burned the very bridge that once protected parts of her past from wider scrutiny. But according to critics, the yacht rumors themselves were never really the central issue. The deeper story, they claim, is about how far public figures might go to reshape or bury uncomfortable parts of their history, and how quickly the internet can resurrect those stories once public opinion shifts. For years, Meghan Markle built her image around being a misunderstood outsider challenging tradition and speaking uncomfortable truths. But critics now argue that the public may be understanding her too well. To those critics, the royal fairy tale no longer resembles a story about love and liberation. Instead, they describe it as a case study in modern image management, celebrity branding, and narrative control. As the internet continues resurfacing old interviews, photographs, and social connections, critics claim the Sussex brand is steadily losing its shine. Commentators point out that Meghan Markle once occupied one of the most influential positions in the world, a role where she could have symbolized cultural change, modernized royal traditions, and represented a new era for the monarchy. But according to critics, She instead became a cautionary tale about the dangers of carefully filtering and rewriting personal history in the age of social media and digital investigation. Now, with attention turning toward the Sussex's future projects, including discussions surrounding a possible 2026 Australia tour, one major question dominates the conversation. Can the Sussex brand survive this level of public skepticism? Or has the carefully maintained image slipped too far for it ever to be fully restored? The silence from Montecito continues. The resurfaced photographs continue circulating online. And the Duke of Regret narrative surrounding Prince Harry continues spreading across social media platforms and YouTube commentary channels. For a couple once convinced they could rewrite the rules of royalty, the situation has become a shocking reversal of fortune. Because, as critics repeatedly point out, there is one rule no public figure can ever truly rewrite. Eventually, the truth, or at least the public's perception of it, always finds its way back to the surface. And in this case, the internet jokes that it arrived wearing a swimsuit and carrying a glass of champagne.